Qiyam this Friday, April 7th, in Natomas, starting at 11:45 p.m. inshallah. Sisters Qiyam will be in Friday, April 14th, so the following Friday we'll have a Qiyam here. But there's one in Natomas on April 7th, which is a Friday. This year's Zakat al-Fitr is $20 per person, and Zakat al-Mal can be calculated on our Zakat page on the website using the Zakat calculator. There's also two boxes labeled Zakat for your convenience at each of the entrances for the brothers and sisters, and you can put your Zakat al-Fitr in there. Please do not park in the fire lane. When you're here, we do have a towing company in contract, and so if we find vehicles that are parked in the fire lane or not in a designated parking spot, your vehicle might get towed. So if you have parked in a red zone or illegally double parked, please move your vehicle, inshallah, to avoid any incurred expenses. We have one dua here from an anonymous community member. An anonymous community member has been struggling with distractions and is requesting dua for focus on his academics and his deen. I think, Allahumma ameen, this goes for most people, not just this brother. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clear his mind and give him focus. Allahumma ameen. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Now I switch to the... I'm wearing multiple hats today, so that was my announcement voice. Now it's, inshallah, the khatara voice. You could have helped? Well, that would have been helpful earlier. Khair, inshallah. It's fine. It's not blocking you guys, is it? No? Okay. Everybody hear me okay? Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Imam Hassan ibn Ali and Abu Dhar al-Ghifari are two of the most incredible Sahaba. And they were both foremost among men in their time. AlHasan, as we all know, is the Prophet's grandson, and Abu Dhar was the greatest activist of his time. Ibn Asakir narrates عن ابن حسن بن علي أنه قيل له إن أبو ذر يقول فقر أحب إلي من الغنى والسقم أحب إلي من الصحة. Al-Hasan was asked, Abu Dhar says that poverty is more beloved to him than wealth, and that illness is more beloved to him than health. So Al-Hasan responds to this, Rahimullah Abu Dhar. أما أنا فأقول, may Allah have mercy on Abu Dhar. As for me, I say, من اتكل على حسن اختيار الله لا لم يتمنى أنه في غير الحالة لتختار الله لا. Whoever relies on Allah's choices for him would not want to desire any other state other than the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose for him. وهذا حاد الوقوف على الرضا بما تصرف به القضاء. This ultimately is the minimum required level of contentment with the unfolding of decrees. Subhanallah. Who wouldn't want to be in such a state of tranquility and sakina and peace in their heart? Who wouldn't want to be in such a state that has peace of mind no matter what happens to you, right? The words of Abu Dhar here involve mujahada, which is to struggle a little bit, right? You struggle with your nafs and you fight it. It's persevering. While the words of Al-Hasan, they represent a rida. What is rida, you ask? Rida is an exercise of the heart where one accepts the decrees of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without complaining or questioning. You might still feel pain. You might still feel discomfort. We're human after all. You'll feel fear and anxiousness and anxiety. But your heart will remain tranquil in accepting the qada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the choices He makes for us. Contentment is not when you cease to feel pain, but rather when you cease to complain about the divine rulings and decrees. This is a different perspective than most people have been exposed to. In the famous dua, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, رَضِيتُ بِاللَّهِ رَبَّا وَبِالْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا وَبِمُحَمَّدٍ نَبِيًّا sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'm content with Allah as my Lord. This is the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'm content with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as my Lord. I am content with Islam as my deen, and I'm content with Muhammad as my messenger. But Rida, you have to ask yourself, does it have anything to do with exhausting means, right? Is it a passive thing, or is this something where you're a little bit active? Again, it's an ibadah of the heart. And so this doesn't mean that you settle for that low-paying job and just accept it that this is, Allah decreed this for me, I'm not going to try any harder, right? Your physical body should exhaust itself and hustle to become successful, but your heart should remain tranquil if it doesn't get achieved. This is the definition. Your heart has to always be in that same place. How many of us can say that we've achieved that level? Nobody should raise their hand. You see some people when they are experiencing a calamity, they say, what? Come on, guys, you know the answer to this. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, right? This is what people say when they experience trouble. But when you say it, do you say it to vent frustration? Right? Most people, they use la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah when there's a negative thing happening, right? Your kid spills milk in the musalla carpet. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Right? You missed your bus. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. This is the usage of it, right? Our tone is always negative. If you do this, it's still not bad, right? It's okay, because this is what Allah, we should be doing. However, we should also be using la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah when there's a positive thing happening. The tone should be used either way. So, if you use it out of frustration, that's okay. But it's not where you want to be. If your goal is to, upgrade yourself from hal to maqam, right? The hal we talked about is temporary state, and maqam is a permanent station, right? And we've been examining these two differences all throughout the month of Ramadan. Inshallah, we're going to continue to do so. So let's get into it. What is hal al-rida? This is when you stop complaining or resisting in your heart, pushing back against God's choices for you, right? That's hal al-rida, when you don't complain. But what is maqam al-rida then? Maqam al-rida is sururuhu bin-niqmati mithla sururihi bin-ni'ma. When somebody's happiness with trials is equivalent to his happiness with prosperity. So your happiness with trials is the same as the happiness when you're prospering or when good things are happening. So when it's bad, you're happy. When it's good, you're happy. This should be our goal, inshaAllah ta'ala. You know that they both come from Allah, right? The good and the bad and the ugly, as they say. They all come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But why is it that we treat the bad with a bad reaction? As if we're discontent, we're unhappy with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree for us, right? It's a test. Everything, brothers and sisters, is a test for us every waking moment of our existence. So we should hustle and struggle in life to explore more. However, in our hearts, we need to be perfectly content with the station that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen for us. And when we achieve that station of content, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will elevate us. SubhanAllah. You fight it, you resist it, no matter how much you do, you're going to hit a wall. If Allah doesn't want you to move forward, no matter how much effort you put forward, you're stuck. This is where you're at. Your rizq stops there for now. And it's counterintuitive. Once you let go and you release the reins, you put the work in, but you release the reins, and you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is where you're going to start seeing strides. How many of us can say that we've witnessed this before? One time or another in their life. I personally have. Raise your hand if you have. Inshallah, the rest of you will have it. After tonight, you have the recipe. So I want to hear from you once it happens, inshallah. When you're content with little and with loss, you will be content with prosperity and excess. Remember that. When you're content with little and with loss, you will be content with prosperity and excess. Inshallah wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the hand that always gives and not the hand that receives. Allahumma ameen. Yahya bin Mu'adh, the great mystic of the 3rd century after Hijrah, was once asked, when does one reach the maqam of Rida? He says, إذا أقام نفسه على أربعة أصول فيما يعلم به ربا. Subhanallah. When one makes 4 principles binding on himself as he interacts with his Lord. What are they? إن أعطيتني قبلت وإن منعتني رضيت وإن تركتني عبدت وإن دعوتني أجبت. Bismillah. If you give me, I accept. If you deny me, I accept. If you leave me alone, I worship. And if you call upon me, I hasten to answer you. Is it clear? Is this the reaction that we have when we are faced with things in life? If it's not, it should be. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it so. So this is attainable with some effort and spiritual resilience, my brothers and sisters. And one of the ways to develop rida is to know that the sacrifice that you make, because that it does require sacrifice, right? One of the ways to attain rida is to know that the sacrifice that you make is seen by the eyes of your beloved. And who is your beloved in this particular case? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's a story that helps really take this particular notion home. So there once was a bandit. There was a man and he used to be a bandit. He was very well known. He had an alias though. His nickname was Jamalu Aisha. His nickname was Aisha's camel. Why was he named Aisha's camel? Because the woman that he loved, her name was Aisha. And he acted towards her like a camel does in its patience and willingness to do whatever she asked for. So she asked him for something. He didn't have it. So what did he do? He went out and stole it. Right? The sisters are now like, oh, mashallah. And the brothers are like, I'm never going to steal from my wife. So she would ask for things, and then he would go, and it didn't matter the cost, he would go and he'd find a way to get it to her, right? So one of those times, it catches up with him, right? They are able to catch him, they capture him because of those crimes, and they sentence him to flogging. So he's now strapped down, and they're hitting him, right? And one of the mystics of the time saw him, and they realized that his facial expression changed from a frown to a smile in the middle of his beating. And that kind of got his interest a little bit. So he went to him and he said, what makes punishment easier for you? And the man said, إِذَا رَآنَا مَنْ ضَرِبْنَا مِنْ أَجْلِهِ. He says, if I'm seen by the person for whom I'm being beaten. If we have this relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then even when we struggle, we're going to smile because we know that the sacrifice is for somebody that we love. You see? The scholars of the hearts, brothers and sisters, detail us the gradings of rida into categories before, during, and after the circumstances. And we've been talking about Ibn-ul Qayyim, and his saying in this particular matter is الرضا سكون القلب بمجريات الأحكام. That it is the tranquility of the heart in the face of circumstances. Well, Brother Yusuf, bad circumstances, good circumstances, questionable ones. He doesn't specify here, he says circumstances. Why? Because it's all circumstances. Whether it's happy, whether it's sad, whether it's anxious, whether it's fearful. It's clear. There is no particular time where you should have tranquility of the heart. It's all times. You should always have tranquility of the heart, no matter the circumstances. So before they unfold,
We do not fear or worry. As it unfolds, we don't falter or lose sight of the goal. And after it unfolds, it should only do what? Increase us in contentment. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us perseverance and not to fear or to worry. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us contentment, that we do not falter or lose sight of our goals. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to only grow in contentment and upgrade us from hal state to a maqam as a permanent station in our hearts that will guide us through this life and into Jannat al-Firdaus in the next. Allahumma ameen. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت واستغفرك وأتوب إليك وقوموا إلى الصلاة وارحمكم الله.